Information from patients are ending up on the internet. We're talking about x-rays, ultrasounds, CT scans, and more, and the problem shows no sign of slowing down. Our cybersecurity expert Dave Hatter is here to show us how we can protect our private medical information. Good to see you, Dave.
Good to see you, Sheila.
And you and I have talked about this before.
Yeah.
I mean, we give our doctors all of our information, pretty much everything about us.
It's a substantial amount. Sure.
How are they required to protect it?
Well, so there's an act that was passed in '96, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, better known as HIPAA. So they, under law, are required to protect this information. But of course, as you've already pointed out, there's a ton of information, and it's a real treasure trove for hackers. So it's a huge problem.
Hackers can make a whole lot of money if they get something like a social security number or like a full profile on a patient, right?
Yeah, you're right. So a lot of information is sold on the dark web, but things like health information typically is more valuable, partially because if they steal your credit card number, banks have gotten very good at detecting fraud and shutting your credit card down. I bet almost everyone in the viewing audience has had that happen to them by this point.
Several times, I have, yeah.
But the health insurance business as a whole, whether it's healthcare providers, hospitals, insurance companies, typically aren't nearly as advanced as the financial services industry. So that data, once they steal it, can be used in a lot of different ways.
How?
And often,
How can they use it?
Well, for example, they can go out and get services in your name. They can sign up for some kind of medical services or so, for something like that in your name.
Wow.
In some cases, it's used for things like phishing attacks. Now they have very specific information about you, so they could send an email that looks like it's from your doctor or someone with very specific information that would make it seem really legitimate.
Wow.
So, as you mentioned, these records, often known as fulls, when they have everything about you, they're worth a lot more money. So consequently, the hackers have a lot more incentive to go after those. And because of the long-term nature of this healthcare thing and the fact that they don't have these advanced systems, you can use that for much longer and get a lot more money out of it.
Yeah.
It's a bad problem.
So what should we do? Because we've already given this information to our doctors and hospitals.
To some extent, you got to hope that all the people that have your information are following all the regulations under HIPAA and are doing all the due diligence things they should to keep your information safe.
And you can ask them, right?
You can ask them, and frankly, you should ask them. It puts some pressure on them. It makes them think about this. It raises their awareness. But the things you can do yourself: A, don't provide any more information to any healthcare provider than you're required to by law or that you need for whatever particular condition, treatment that you need. Don't tell them stuff they don't need to know. If you're not required to give a social security number, don't give it to them. That's one thing. If you get medical documents, don't just throw them in the garbage, shred them. Destroy them somehow so that a dumpster diver doesn't take it out of your trash. Use two-factor authentication and strong passwords on any accounts that you access that have that information, so a hacker can't get into your account and steal it from your side of the equation versus the healthcare provider's information.
Are the healthcare providers realizing now that they've got to do better at protecting this?
I think they are, and because there's a second angle to this too, Sheila, which is the actual medical devices themselves and so forth in hospitals that are potentially under assault. So I think the healthcare business as a whole realizes the seriousness of this. They're patients too, right? I mean, they're hit on both sides of this, but because of the additional value of these types of records and the fact that people are making a lot of money, they continue to be a target. So to the extent you can control it yourself, like if you're going to search on the internet for medical information, use something like DuckDuckGo, use a VPN, use a privacy-oriented browser like Tor, or because
so it's not saved on your devices.
It's not saved on your devices. It's not stored. It's not potentially breached from their end. You just try to limit the footprint of medical information that you have out there, and that will go a long way towards keeping you safer. And then just good cybersecurity practices in general.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you,
Good
Sheila.
stuff. We'll be right back.